because you're lazy. But the truth is, you're lost. Not because you lack discipline, not because you're weak, but because something inside you stopped believing effort was worth it. There's a quiet kind of pain that never screams. It just slows you down. It turns minutes into hours, tasks into mountains. And suddenly, the laundry stays untouched, the messages go unanswered, and you're stuck, watching yourself fade from your own life. But what if I told you that laziness isn't the enemy? What if it's the body's silent cry, a final signal before collapse? We've been taught to hate this state, to push through, hustle harder, shame it away. But what if that's the mistake? Because beneath every unwashed dish, every missed deadline, every day spent scrolling in numb autopilot, there is a deeper wound, not laziness, disorientation, the quiet freeze. Most people think procrastination is about laziness, but science tells a different story. Studies reveal a terrifying link between chronic avoidance and depression. Not sadness, disconnection. When the brain can't see a clear path forward, it defaults to shutdown. When the heart loses a sense of meaning, even standing up feels like war. We call them lazy because they're still. But stillness isn't failure. It's defense. It's the freeze response of someone who feels trapped. Think about it. When you're excited about life, do you delay it? Number. You leap. You move without thinking. Energy floods in because the goal feels real. But when you're lost, nothing feels real. No future feels worth chasing. So the system shuts down. And here's the haunting part. The longer you sit in that fog, the more you blame yourself for not moving. And the more you blame yourself, the deeper the freeze becomes. This is not laziness. This is survival. A hidden intelligence. That inner resistance? It's not just sabotage. It's your psyche screaming, "Stop pretending this is the life you want." The work doesn't make sense anymore. The dreams don't light you up. The path you're on feels borrowed, built for someone else. And so you hesitate, not because you don't care, but because the map is wrong. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." But when you're called back to your soul, laziness becomes the doorway. It says, wait, pause, look closer. The emergency brake. Picture this. You're in a car. You're driving fast. But you suddenly realize you have no idea where you're going. What do? You pull the emergency brake. That's what this is. Laziness is not you giving up. It's you slamming on the brakes because the road ahead no longer makes sense. And once that confusion sets in, panic. Then paralysis. Then the quiet, suffocating blanket of helplessness. You don't just stop because you're tired. You stop because your soul doesn't recognize the destination anymore. The reframe that changes everything. So what if we stopped calling it laziness? What if we saw it for what it is? A signal, a question, a redirection. What if, instead of forcing ourselves to just do it, we asked, why does doing this feel so wrong? Why do I keep resisting the thing I say I want? Why do I feel emptier after productivity wins? Why do I scroll for hours, not out of joy, but escape? These are not lazy questions. These are the questions that rebuild your life from the inside out. And chances are, if you're still watching this, you already feel that tug, that quiet whisper that says, there's more than this. You're not here for a quick fix. You're here because something in you wants to understand, wants to wake up. Unlearning the lie. You were never supposed to be a machine. Your value isn't your output. Your spirit isn't measured in calendars, clicks, or checkboxes. Somewhere along the way, they sold you a version of success that didn't include rest, confusion, or grief. They taught you that stillness is weakness, that doubt is failure, that slowing down means falling behind. But those are lies built by systems that profit from your self-rejection. Because when you think you're lazy, you buy more programs, you hustle harder, you spend your life proving you're not broken, and in doing so, you drift further from the truth. The subtle turnaround. Here's the quiet shift. Instead of forcing yourself to move, listen to the part of you that won't. Don't shame the stillness. Ask it, what are you trying to protect me from? Is it burnout? Is it heartbreak? Is it the fear of failing again? The answer isn't in more effort. It's in more awareness. And from that awareness, the fog begins to lift. Not all at once, but enough to take the first honest step. Something to reflect on. If this is you, if you've been stuck, ashamed, calling yourself lazy, I want to ask you something. What if your laziness is the wisest part of you? The part that refused to keep playing a game that was never yours to begin with. Let it sit with you. Comment what this stirs in you. There are thousands watching who feel the same. And as this message reaches more of us, we remember, stillness is not the opposite of growth. Sometimes, it's the beginning of it. They told you to push through, to stop being soft, to just try harder. But no one ever asked what you were pushing toward, or who you were becoming in the process. Because here's the deeper truth most never see. Laziness isn't the absence of energy. It's energy refusing to be misused. There is a wisdom inside your resistance, but it speaks a language only stillness understands. So, if you've been stuck, not moving, not caring, not feeling, maybe that's not a breakdown. Maybe it's a threshold, a quiet refusal to keep walking toward something that never felt like you. When the soul shuts the system down. Psychologists studying chronic procrastination found something strange. People weren't avoiding effort. They were avoiding pain. The task itself wasn't the problem. It was what the task represented. The pressure to be perfect. The fear of disappointing someone. The possibility of trying and failing. So what does the brain do? It shields you. It numbs you. It delays the pain, even if it costs you progress. But that isn't weakness. That's your system trying to protect the most tender part of you, the part that remembers how much it hurt the last time you gave your all, and still felt like it wasn't enough. Laziness as grief. Here's a wild idea. What if your laziness is grief? Grief for the dream you no longer believe in. Grief for the version of you that kept going, even when it hurt. Grief for the time, energy, and love you gave to people who never saw it. No one talks about the kind of tired that isn't physical, the kind that settles in your bones when life keeps asking you to show up, but never gives you something real to stand on. So your body slows, your mind wanders, your motivation flatlines, and deep down, your soul whispers, I need to be rebuilt, not pushed. What we call lazy is often a lie. You weren't lazy when you couldn't focus. You were overwhelmed. You weren't lazy when you kept postponing that project. You were afraid of what it meant if you failed. You weren't lazy when you stayed in bed all day. You were surviving a battle no one could see. But because it didn't look like bleeding, they told you to get over it. Because it didn't look like crying, they assumed you didn't care. Because you were still breathing, they forgot you were also breaking. But here's the truth. You never stopped trying. You just ran out of fake reasons to keep pretending. The wisdom in refusal. There's a version of you that says no to certain tasks. It says no to certain people. It avoids. It resists. It freezes. And maybe you've hated that version. But what if it's trying to save you from burnout, from misalignment, from a life built on other people's expectations? Laziness often begins as avoidance, but under the surface, it becomes intuition. And if you listen closely, you'll hear what it's been trying to tell you all along. This isn't where I thrive. Redefining productivity. We've inherited a lie that productivity equals worth, that doing more means being more. But real healing begins when you ask, why am I doing this at all? Are you working for survival? For status? For someone's approval? Or are you building a life that actually nourishes you? Because here's the paradox. The moment you stop forcing energy, you start releasing it. The more you align your actions with your truth, the less you need to motivate yourself. Desire becomes effortless. Movement becomes natural. Flow returns, not through pressure, but clarity. How to unlock yourself again. So how do you begin? When you've been numb for so long? You don't start by pushing. You start by listening. Ask yourself one honest question. What am I avoiding? And why? Then sit with the answer, not to judge it, but to understand it. From that understanding, you choose one small, gentle, truthful action. Not one that impresses others, but one that restores you. Maybe it's opening the window, drinking a glass of water, cleaning one part of the room, or writing down one sentence you actually believe. Tiny truths. Because motivation doesn't start with a roar. It starts with a whisper that says, I don't want to live like this anymore. You are not broken. You're not broken because you've been still. You're not weak because you paused. You're not lazy because the fire went out. You're just someone who's tired of lying to themselves. Someone who's ready to live a life that makes sense again. And that readiness? It doesn't always feel like motivation. Sometimes it feels like quiet grief. Sometimes it feels like exhaustion. Sometimes it feels like an emptiness you can't describe. But beneath all of that is a flicker that says, I know there's something more for me. That flicker is sacred. It's yours. And it's waiting to be honored, not ignored. A quiet invitation, Maybe this video found you at the right moment. Or maybe you found it because something inside you was already stirring. So here's what I want to ask you. What is one thing your laziness has been trying to protect you from? Type it below. Not for algorithm, not for likes, but because sometimes, when we name what's true, we free someone else too. Let this be a space for that. And if this voice feels familiar, if you're still here, still watching, still feeling something you haven't felt in a while, that's not laziness leaving. That's life returning. Laziness is not your enemy. It's your compass. It points away from the life you're told to tolerate and toward the one you haven't yet dared to build. But it doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It waits, quietly, for you to notice. That maybe the reason you've stopped moving is because you're not meant to go back to where you were. The hidden intelligence of inaction. When a computer overheats, it shuts down. When an animal is wounded, it hides to heal. But when a human freezes, we call it laziness. Why? Because we forget that nature doesn't rush. Every winter tree looks dead on the outside, but underground, the roots are preparing, deepening, strengthening, holding. What you call a rut might be your roots remembering themselves. This is not your downfall. It's your recalibration. And if you give yourself permission to feel that, without shame, without force, without the pressure to explain yourself, you'll begin to notice something. Stillness isn't the opposite of progress. It's the soil that real growth grows from. The day the energy comes back, there will be a morning, quiet, unannounced, where you open your eyes and something feels different. Not louder, not brighter, just clearer. A flicker of desire, not from ego, but from alignment. You won't want to conquer the day. You'll want to tend to it, not to impress, not to escape guilt, but to return to yourself. That moment is not born from discipline. It's born from healing. And once it arrives, you'll no longer chase productivity out of panic. You'll move from a place of peace. What to do when you still feel stuck? But what if that day hasn't come yet? What if you still wake up with fog? Still feel that heavy quiet? Still ask yourself, why can't I just do it? Then, this is your medicine. Don't aim for motivation. Aim for momentum. Motivation is loud, but it fades. Momentum is small, but it builds. Start with one motion, not the best one, not the perfect one, just one. Move your body. Open a window. Sit with a journal and let one honest sentence out. Make your bed as if it's a sacred ritual. The goal isn't to fix yourself. The goal is to remind yourself that you still belong to life. The power of making meaning. Laziness loses its grip when you find a reason that feels like you. Not a job, not a task, not someone else's dream, but a meaning that brings your soul back to your skin. Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." If you don't have a why, laziness becomes your defense against a meaningless how. But when you reconnect with a purpose, even a small one, the fog begins to lift. So here's a question you've never been asked seriously enough. What do you want your effort to serve? Not what your parents want, not what society rewards, not what gets you likes, but you, your inner rhythm, your quiet longing. If you can name that, even clumsily, you'll begin to awaken an energy that doesn't need caffeine or shame to keep going. Protect your energy, like a sacred resource. Here's the final layer most people never see. Once you get your energy back, you must protect it. Because the moment you rise, the world will try to recruit you again into its noise, its rat race, its empty hustle. They'll applaud your comeback, but secretly want you to go back to being useful for them. Don't. Build a system that honors your cycles. Create routines that don't punish you. Say no to things that drain you, even if they once felt like your identity. This time, your energy must belong to your healing, not your old habits. A quiet plan that actually works. Forget 5 a.m. wake-ups. Forget 10-hour productivity hacks. Try this instead. One truthful task a day. Do one thing that genuinely moves your life forward, even if it's small. 2. Protect your mornings. Don't check your phone first. Check your breath. Check your mood. 3. Don't seek motivation. Seek rhythm. Seek peace. Seek honesty with how you feel. 4. Celebrate every return. Not every day will feel alive, but every return is sacred. Even if you fall off for weeks, when you show up again, celebrate it. Because consistency isn't about perfection. It's about the courage to begin again and again. You were never lazy. You were misunderstood. If no one told you this before, let me be the first. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not a failure. You are not defective. You are not unmotivated. You are sensitive in a world that wants robots. You are healing in a world that values performance. You are deep feeling in a system that rewards numbing. You are alive. And aliveness does not always look like hustle. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like refusal. Sometimes it looks like a breakdown that leads to the most honest rebuild of your life. If you've felt seen, then this isn't just a video. It's your mirror. You made it this far because something in you was ready to be seen. So don't let this be a passive moment. Let it be the one where you remembered. That energy isn't something you chase. It's something you uncover. That your resistance isn't bad. It's sacred. That laziness is not a flaw. It's a message. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop shaming yourself for the ways you survived. And start trusting yourself to create a life where you don't need to escape anymore.